But while John was keen for them to do well, he was also easily distracted and would flip from one project or plan to another. He needed Paul's drive and determination to keep him focused on the pursuit of success. Paul's organised, conscientious way of going about things, he wrote down all the lyrics in a notebook he carried with him, was in sharp contrast to John's anything goes style. Paul turned up for appointments on time, looking well turned out. He was a perfectionist, and you always knew he'd washed behind his ears. John arrived late, looking as though he'd just fallen out of bed. But they complemented each other. John needed Paul's attention to detail and persistence. Paul needed John's anarchic, lateral thinking. What Stuart and John had in common was a restless, speedy nature. But while John bounced from one idea to the next, never able to settle or concentrate for long, Stuart put all his energy into being a star pupil.
He was a real media junkie, and he liked to have this constant electronic buzz going. You know, the TV would be on with the sound off or very low, and the radio would be on, and he'd be reading. He'd have his reading material strewn about. He was very knowledgeable about all kinds of subjects, scientific subjects, history, ancient history, archaeology. He liked to have his attention focused on different things at once because he had a very active mind.
In John's case, he had marvellous ideas, but they were a little bit difficult to realise. He wasn't a very practical man. He couldn't change a fuse, you know, and he certainly didn't know the instruments that could be used. So he would come to me and describe the sound that he would want, and I would then try and give him what he wanted.
But how would he have described Strawberry Fields, for example?
Well, in the case of Strawberry Fields, we started off with just the Beatles doing it. And then he came back to me and said, it's not quite what I imagined. He said, you know, I'd like to do it again. Could you write a score? I'd like to use some low cellos and some brass, maybe some trumpets and things. So I said, okay. And I said, I'll spend some time with him. I talked through with him what we could do, and then went away and wrote a score. But in other cases, he would say, this to me is an orange sound, or something of that sort, you see. He would be very poetic, but not terribly accurate in his description.
But then you would deliver something and maybe he wouldn't like it, so you'd have to go and find a different way of doing it.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, you know, before he died, I spent an evening with him in New York, and we were chatting about old times. And he came up with a remark which shook me. He said, you know, I'd love to re-record everything. I said, John, you can't really mean that. Everything we've ever done, you'd like to re-record. Come on. He said, no, really, I mean it. And I said, what about Strawberry Fields? Oh, he said, oh, especially Strawberry Fields. And I realised he was never really satisfied with anything he'd done, because his dream world was always better. Real life wasn't half as much fun.
If it works, it's right. Yeah. If it doesn't work, it's wrong.
Well, nobody's ever given it a chance before, have they? Nobody's ever given peace a complete chance. Gandhi tried it, Martin Luther King tried it, but they were shot. But nobody's given...
You can't get peace in a king-size divan on floor 802.
We don't expect to. I mean, we're talking mainly to the revolutionaries who think they can get it overnight by breaking down the buildings, you know. They can't get it. We thought about this for months. This is the best possible, most functional and effective way of promoting and protesting against violence that our minds combined could think of.
That someone of his caliber had decided, hell, I'm not just going to stand still and do nothing while the world around me is in flames. I'm going to do something. And so that action that he and Yoko did, it was, of course, attacked and mocked, and there were contemptuous articles written about them. But on our generation, it had a fantastic effect. I remember being absolutely thrilled and saying, at last, well done, great.
We didn't think of it as we made an incredible success in Amsterdam. We were totally accused of doing a silly thing, as you know. In the press, they attacked us and they slashed us, you know. But this was our mission, and we had to do it.
We did it again. We tried to do it in New York, But the American government wouldn't let us in. They knew we'd done it in Amsterdam, and they didn't want any peaceniks here, which is what we heard the department of whoever controls that said. But we ended up doing it in Montreal instead, and broadcasting across the border.
You gotta live. You gotta love.
It's a bed-in, folks. I think they might think I'm going to hot up the revolution. You know, I want to cool it down. If we make people laugh, that's enough. Happiness is a good vibe for peace. Make love, not war. That's all we're saying. Just remember that. Peace, 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 peace. Peace in your mind, peace on earth, peace at work, peace at home, peace in the world. We're selling it like soap, you know, and you've got to sell and sell until the housewife thinks, oh, well, there's peace or war. That's the two products.
I remember being invited up to the Bed-In for Peace. The Smothers Brothers were fairly visible at the time as a anti-establishment spokesman. I went up there and had these long conversations.
You don't realize the state and the control that exists in the United States in the expression of what you want to say, to the mildest form of dissent.
There's no space or no time for negative thoughts, you know. We just have to say, listen, we're going to make it, that's all, you know. And we have to make it.
What would you say to people like Richard Nixon?
I'd say do something positive about it, and it really is economical to have peace, Mr. Nixon, and you'd be really popular if you did.
What should he do?
He should just declare peace.
He reduced it to these very fundamental, easy-to-grasp concepts that some people thought were utopian and naive.
I believe sincerely, as soon as people want peace and are aware that they can have it, they will have it. The only trouble is they're not aware that they can get it.
Is it naive to wish for peace? Is it naive to think that we can change the world? Sure, probably. It's certainly worthy of the thought process and the art that comes out of it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
John once said to me, when I sing, I want to hold your hand. Hundreds of millions of people hear that. Why don't I sing, give peace a chance? Because hundreds of millions of people will hear that as well.
Well, I thought that was a great phrase. That's the one that went, all we are saying is give peace a chance. They'd repeat that over and over again. I thought it was wonderful. Give peace a chance. Who can be opposed to that? The administration was.
They scare people into fighting wars, which we need not fight, should not fight. Sometimes must fight, but by and large not. Why not go the other way? Sing about human community, sing about love, sing about peace. And suddenly that is a frightening voice for people who want to hear the battle hymn of the Republic over and over again. And their eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord.